Hello and hello. Thank you very much for joining me today for Last Week in Germany, where some random Yank, goes over, the top posts from the German subreddits, some German news from last week, make sure I'm up to date on everything. Let's do it. Okay, I saw this headline pop up the other day, and I knew this had to be something I talked about. Because, wow, look, a little bit of retribution, some quid pro quo. Is that what you say? You guys are deporting us now. Uno reverse. Yeah, this really stood out to me. This is very interesting. Germany seeks to deport an American and 3 EU citizens. Who cares about them, though? I only care about America and Americans. Okay, we're the center of the world, center of the universe. But yeah, 3 EU citizens as well. After they participated in a pro-Palestinian protest. Wow, that's pretty fascinating to me. I did not foresee that, because obviously you guys are overall super anti-Trump, right? And this is something that Trump is doing here in America, pretty much to the T. Deporting foreigners for participating in pro-Palestinian protests. Now, I will say this whole conflict, the Israel-Palestine conflict, I don't touch it. I don't talk about it. I'm not informed enough, to be honest. I've read actually a lot about it, and it's like no matter how much I read, there's different sources contradict each other. There seems to be an endless amount of history, despite, Israel being a very young country. It's like, you could just, they did this for this. No, but then they did this for this. But they did this because of this and this and this and this and this. I hate war. I hate innocent people dying. But beyond that, I have nothing to say. But I do find it interesting because, obviously given Germany's history, that does put a unique twist on perspective on the conflict, considering World War II. I don't know if you've heard about that. Or even like the Munich massacre. You guys have some history that intertwines with this. And so, okay. From what I can see, Germany as a state in general, pro-Israel, like America. Now, deporting people for protesting puts a pretty nasty taste in my mouth, no matter who does it. Obviously, it's made more complicated, the fact that they're not German citizens, and like here in America, they're not American citizens. But still, mainly this is just interesting because obviously America has been detaining and deporting German, people for pretty much no reason, it seems like, to the point where you guys have issued travel advisories to people traveling to America. So granted, this is a little bit different. This American participated in a pro-Palestinian protest. They weren't just coming into Germany with a tattoo machine. Let me see. I don't know. I don't know what I want to know. I want to know basically who this person is. Let's see. So it was 2 from Ireland, 1 from Poland, and 1 from the U.S. So, they were actually given orders to leave before they were detained and deported, which at least is a little bit of a less authoritarian feeling way to do it than just to go straight up arrest them out of nowhere. I digress. So they say they were masked individuals who entered a university building and caused property damage, including graffiti. That's an interesting detail, isn't it? These types of things are always a little bit more complicated once you read into it a little bit. It's like, okay, all right. So they weren't just carrying around a sign. They were going in a building and spray painting it. If I did that, to be honest, if I went to any country and went inside a university and spray painted it, I would expect to be kicked out of the country. That's just that's what I would expect. I'm not going to lie. Regardless of if it was for a protest or for whatever. Cooper Longbottom. That's the American from Seattle. Okay, it does look like he at least attended that university. So he wasn't necessarily just walking into a random university. Okay. I don't know. What would I like to see from here? I would like to see some evidence of exactly what these people did. That would be cool. Was he actually spray painting? Was he just there? But like I said, I don't get myself too intertwined in these types of things. They're above my pay grade. So you can be outraged in the comments or whatever. I don't know. He says, I hadn't expected it to go this way at all. I hadn't gotten any charges in the mail. It's just a complete mess and not how the order of criminal law and due process is supposed to go. Okay. Moving on, y'all. Moving on. This post, this is the top post in r/Germany this week. As you can see, I've already clicked it. That's why it's gray. I've seen a lot of posts like this. It's actually quite interesting. I would not have thought, before ever perusing the German subreddit, I wouldn't think that a huge portion of the posts are just people that are like, am I being discriminated against? That's interesting. And, this time I decided, let's dive into it a little bit. Let's see this story. I'll give my thoughts, and I want to read some comments, because I've seen this so many times, I kind of want to, dive into it a little bit. I'm Chinese, I'm female, I work at a German Mittelstand company. Don't know what that is. Most of my colleagues are German, of course. I always try to speak German for small talk as much as I can. However, several things happened recently that make me begin to wonder, am I being discriminated against, or am I just too sensitive? The first thing is that I was with two colleagues together. We were speaking German, and one of them said, we are in Germany, so everyone who wants to work for us should speak good German. The other replied, yes, we are Germans. It's kind of fun. I've seen this sentiment in Germany. I've seen Germans get on camera multiple times, like politicians. They'll say, I'm doing this in German. I'm in Germany, I'm speaking in German, or they'll say, I'm going to do it in German first. You guys are pretty proud of your language. Keeping it alive for sure. With that said, it's quite fascinating from the standpoint of an American, because this very same sentiment here in America is considered racist. Like, I'm just being honest. Now, do I agree with that? I've always thought that was a huge stretch to say it's racist. I'm just being honest. I'm like, and what I mean is, obviously here in America, people saying, you live in America, you should speak English. That's what some people say, and that's labeled as like a racist thing. And I have a little bit more of a complicated opinion about it. I feel like you do whatever you want, but if you're going to have a job in America and live in America, I would recommend speaking English. I wouldn't be shocked if you don't get a job because you can't speak English. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how humans communicate. When we all use the same language, that's pretty important. I'm not trying to sound offensive. I feel weird even saying that, because it's considered, like, that's kind of like not what you're supposed to say here in America. At least some people think that. Some people think a lot of things. I don't know, man. I try to just use some common sense. With that said, if you're with a foreigner, would I say that? Would I say this if I was in a conversation with someone who English was their second language? No. No, just out of common courtesy. I wouldn't be like, yeah, you should really speak good English here in America. This just seems like offensive. I don't know. That probably goes to Germans being just a little bit more straightforward. But, I could see how that felt like kind of a slight at her. The second thing is that my manager asked me about a client visit. The manager said the client told them that during the visit, I disappeared for some time. But I was there with my colleagues the whole time, together discussing the work. I don't understand why the client would say something like that to my manager, which is simply not true. I've invested a lot of time and effort into working for this client. I feel sad to be misunderstood. I don't know what to say about that one. That could go either way, huh? Who knows what their motivation for, whether they were genuinely confused or racist or stupid. No matter what, they're stupid. I'll give you that. That's really shitty of them to say that. Assuming that what you're saying is true. You didn't disappear. More details. Disappeared refers to my physical absence. I confronted my manager and even asked in which period I was absent. It turned out that during that time, I was clearly with my colleagues in the office. I felt sad not only because the client said that, probably due to some misunderstanding, but also the manager didn't trust me and actually believed that. You know, it can be that way when you work in work with clients and stuff and you have managers. You know, a lot of times the clients are the real boss. So when they say, hey, such and such wasn't here, unfortunately, the manager's probably going to believe them because at the end of the day, those are the people paying. And so they kind of like, you know, they're not going to have your back as much as you wish that they should, oftentimes. Now, sometimes, you know, it differs company to company. Anyway, I don't know what to think about that. Stupid client. That's what I think. Stupid client. And once the manager got proof that indeed, you know, you were there, they should apologize. And I don't know, they should probably inform the client that they were wrong. Whether that has anything to do with you being Chinese, no idea. I was in the same position until I changed to a company with an open and respectful culture. Apply for new jobs. Keep searching. Your skills are valuable and you are valuable too. But also colleagues isn't the best place to find personal validation. This should come more strongly from friends and exercise goals. But yeah, there are better places out there. Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that advice. I like that advice, you know? I mean, the thing about work is you spend a long time at work. It's a huge part of your life. So, you know, if you've got colleagues that make you feel like crap, you know, whether they meant to or not, I don't know, but it was certainly negligent, in my opinion at least. You know, hopefully you can find a place where the colleagues don't make you feel like crap. Because that's half your life you're living is with your colleagues. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. You can't just snap your fingers and get a new job with better colleagues. And that really is one of the things that sucks about getting a new job in general. You don't really have too much of an idea of how the colleagues are going to be until you actually go do it. How do you black these out at night? Clearly, you haven't seen the German magical window videos. You click a button and the whole thing goes... No, I guess on these, they don't have a shade. The answer is you need a Verdunklungsrollo. Good to know. Germans demanding a complete investigation. Die Zeit. Is that like parody website? I don't want to fall for the parody website again, okay? I don't know if it is or isn't. No, it's just a newspaper. Good German newspaper, I guess. So this is a real thing. DDR, Dance Dance Revolution. You know, it's a good thing that translates like that's a different acronym, GDR, over here in America. Because DDR is Dance Dance Revolution. So that could be confusing. You know, that could be very confusing. It's a different thing. Okay, this says... Germans who demand a complete investigation. So is this a real chart? Like there's no labels on this chart. After the end of National Socialism. Okay. Very few people. I mean, I could see a few reasons why that might be. After the end of the GDR. Okay. You know, I'm just trying to think, like, I guess there's conspiracies about these things. I'm not familiar with conspiracies about the end of the GDR. Like, what would you be investigating? The GDR? Because, I mean, it's over, so... Like, they're gone. I mean, I guess I would still be interested in an investigation. I'm always down for a good investigation. Investigate these people, guys. And after the end of the corona protective measures is much higher. Okay. That's kind of, I guess I could see the humor in that. Considering these are much more, especially this first one, you know. intuitively you would think this would be way higher, much more important than the corona protective measures. I also want to see like what the scale is. Is this 90% of Germans? I kind of like this comment. I've just been going through some comments. They really weren't that interesting. I'm not going to lie. This guy says, or woman, I don't know. I think all three demands are legitimate and important, and I also think that the temporal proximity plays a major role in the presentation here. True. So objectively speaking, this isn't surprising. I didn't even consider that. Are they asking people whether they want to investigate these things now? I assumed we're talking about back when it happened, back after it happened. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there necessarily is a huge demand for investigating the Nazis in 2025. Sure that would be interesting, but it's a little past due. Not as pertinent. But like I said, I like a good investigation. I mean, whether you like it or not, when there's mass hysteria for events like this, there's going to be crooks and corruption, people looking to exploit that and come in and make a quick buck. So, go ahead, investigate them. I don't care. Investigate every well, not everybody. I was going to say everybody. Not everybody. I like privacy. Investigate, the government stuff. What are these? They're everywhere. Oh. It's interesting. I believe that to be remnants of the GDR. I think that's a GDR watchtower. It's been hit with a shrink ray. That's why some of them actually, a lot of them were demolished. But the ones hit with a shrink ray were actually, some of them were looked over. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys had a great week in Germany. And I hope you're having another great one this week. And a great weekend. Happy Easter. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. Bye.